See if you can figure out what's wrong with this image. I'll give you a few seconds before I roll the intro. The RuneScape map is split into chunks. I will restrict myself to unlocking one chunk at a time, only moving on when I've completed all of the content in my current chunks. The goal of this account is to unlock the entire map. This is Chunkman only, my one chunk at a time Iron Man. We left off last episode just finishing up level 67 fishing and 80 cooking, the requirements for fishing and cooking sharks once I unlocked Land's End. When I finished the levels, I still had a beginner clue I'd gotten near the end of the grind, so I decided to do that. I went over to Lumbridge, and instead of spending a few extra seconds going upstairs in the castle, I just hopped to a PvP world to bank in the courtyard. I've done this many times before, and it saved me a lot of time. This time, however, I forgot to hop back. I went about completing my clue just fine, blissfully unaware of what world I was on. I completed the clue, got a mediocre reward, and turned off my recording software. I started walking to the Varrock West Bank and then checked my phone. A few seconds later, I heard combat sounds. I looked up to find that I was being attacked. I had no food on me and couldn't make it to the bank in time, so I died and lost most of what you see in my inventory. Definitely the stupidest mistake I've made on this account so far. What surprises me the most is that I was somehow so unobservant of my surroundings that I didn't notice I was on a PvP world the entire time I was doing the clue. Well, hopefully I won't make that mistake again. The most important items I lost were my cash stack and my law runes. The rest was easy to get back. To get back some money, I sold all the chaos and death runes I had gotten from monster drops and maze randoms. I went around to a bunch of shops to buy back the items I had lost, and then went to Moss Giants to get some law runes. I did a couple trips and got a few drops of 3 law runes. Rebuilding from the death only took a few hours, so it wasn't a big deal. Now that I had recovered from that stupid mistake, it was time to move on and progress the account. To quickly recap our current goal, I was working towards getting a rune axe. To do this, I wanted to go to the Woodcutting Guild by going through Land's End to avoid unlocking parts of Hosidius that would be changed in the upcoming rework, which might potentially get me stuck in a long, unexpected grind. I'd be taking a weird path here to avoid the magic trees. In Land's End, there's a fishing spot for sharks, so that's why I got 76 fishing and 80 cooking. I had not yet unlocked the Land's End chunk yet though, because I wanted to make sure I had a good plan for what to do once I got there. One thing that I forgot to consider in the plans I made last episode is that I would need to get 75% Hosidius favor to enter the Woodcutting Guild, and I wouldn't be able to do this if I didn't unlock Hosidius. This might seem bad, but I figured out a way to work around this. If I go to the Piscarilius port, and one chunk west of it, there's a field that I can plow for Hosidius favor. This chunk would not be changing into any content in the rework. So, before I went to Land's End, I went ahead and unlocked the Port Piscarilius chunk. Here, the only thing I needed to do was start the Client of Corinth quest. I then unlocked the chunk west of this, and started plowing the field. While it certainly isn't the fastest method to get favor, it only took a few hours to get 75%, so not too bad. Now it was finally time to go to Land's End. I unlocked the chunk and set sail. I fished my shark and took a look around the chunk. I knew that there were a bunch of crates with hunter supplies, so I went ahead and searched every crate in the area and got what I could. Now I was ready to unlock the next chunk, which would be the one north of me. If you've seen last episode, you might be wondering what my plans are for hunter. I mentioned how in the chunk north of Land's End, there are ruby harvests which require 15 hunter, and chinchampas which require level 53 hunter. This chunk needs to be unlocked on my path to the Woodcutting Guild. The chunk east of Land's End has copper longtails which only require level 9 hunter, but it is not directly on my path to the guild, so I could avoid it if I wanted to. I didn't want to backlog a long grind like 53 hunter though, especially without first unlocking training methods better than ruby harvests. I had planned to potentially go to the Piscatorus hunter area first, in order to make the hunter grind decently efficient. Thankfully, Nick pointed out to me in the comments of last episode that Chinchampas are actually locked behind the Eagle's Peak quest, so I didn't even need to worry about that. Since I'm only level 12 hunter from the Varrock Museum and XP randoms, I could safely ignore the skill for now, since I wouldn't be backlogging a long grind to level 53. I decided to start lamping Slayer instead, so I wouldn't reach level 15 hunter and have a terrible training method be my only way to train the skill. So without having to train hunter, I went north. Nothing new here other than the hunter creatures, which now weren't an issue, so I went west. Again, nothing new, so I unlocked the next step in my path, which was north again. Here, I noticed something interesting. There were some Korinth guards that would occasionally wander to the eastern edge of this chunk. I then noticed that there were two types of guards, regular Korinth guards and Korinth head guards. The regular Korinth guards had no new drops for me, but the Korinth head guards dropped rune scimitars and kite shields at a 1 in 512 drop rate. The only guards that would peek over the chunk boundary though were the regular ones. I sat there for a good 5 minutes and hopped a few worlds just to make sure that the head guards didn't come into this chunk. If they did, I need to kill them for the drops before moving on. Thankfully though, they didn't wander into this chunk, so I was able to just unlock the eastern chunk and kill them there. The issue here is that the head guards were level 84 and decently strung. I tried to kill them with melee, but they just hit too hard. I would need to safe spot them with magic. This wouldn't be a problem, except for the fact that I had just died with all of my air runes. The money I had gotten back after dying was meant to be spent on the rune axe once I got to the Woodcutting Guild, but instead I ended up going to Aubrey and Varrock and spending nearly all of my money on air and mine runes for Fire Strike casts. I bought 5k casts because the drops were 1 in 512 and I didn't want to have to teleport to Varrock and then walk all the way back to Shazian if I needed to buy more runes. Now that I had the runes, I started to kill the guards. I ended up getting the rune scimitar after only a couple hours of killing them, which was pretty lucky. Then just a few kills later after the rune scimitar, I got the rune kite shield too. I ended up only using a few hundred of the 5k casts I bought, which made me wish I hadn't bought so many, but I was glad to have gotten that lucky with the drops. After obtaining the loot, I was ready to continue on my path to the Woodcutting Guild. I unlocked the chunk east of this one. Here, I unlocked the combat ring as well as the injured warriors, which can be healed for favor. The combat ring is used to obtain Shazian armor, and it turns out that the tier 5 Shazian boots and gloves would be new best in slot items for me, so I would need to get them. Killing the tier 5 Shazian warriors would require 100% favor though, so I would need to get the favor first. The problem is that the little hut with the med packs used to heal the warriors was actually a bit too far south and in the next chunk, so the only thing I needed to do in this chunk for now was talk to the owner of the general store to progress the client of Korinth quest. I then unlocked the chunk with the med packs and got to work getting favor. Similar to plowing the fields, this isn't the fastest way of getting favor by any means, but it only took a few hours, so again, not too bad. Once I got 100% favor, I was ready to kill the Shazian guards to get the armor. You're only allowed to use melee to kill the guards, and since the highest tier guard was level 99, I was a bit concerned about being able to kill them. Thankfully, it ended up being easier than expected, and I only had to bank for food 3 or 4 times. I ended up getting the gloves and boots as the first 2 drops from the tier 5 warriors, so I had my new best in slot items and was ready to continue unlocking chunks. Now, there was no more content in my way to the Woodcutting Guild. I unlocked the next 2 chunks and was at the guild. Thankfully, the redwood trees and magic trees are in the western part of the guild, which was in a different chunk. I did have access to the cave with ints though, which can drop magic logs, so I would still need to get level 75 fletching and fire making. I finally had access to the axe shop, but the rune axe was going to cost me 40k. I had spent nearly all of my money on the fire strike casts, which I didn't end up using. I alked what I could from my bank, but was still short on GP. This ended up not being too much of a problem though. In Land's End, there's a flax field, and I had access to plenty of maple trees, so I decided to make about 500 maple longbows and sell them to the bow shop in Varrock. I bought an adamant axe first to cut those 500 maples with. Once I had made and sold the bows, I had more than enough money to finally buy the rune axe. It felt really good to finally get the axe. I had spent so much time grinding for this. Of course, I wasn't done with the chunk yet though. I still needed to grind for 75 fire making and fletching, so it was time to get to work. I decided to fletch and string 5,000 maple longbows to get myself a healthy cash stack. I also had some arrow tips and bolt tips in my bank from the smithing grind, so I would use those to train my fletching as well. And that's all the progress I have for this episode. I've spent a lot of hours grinding these skills so far, and still have a few fire making levels to go. As for what I'm going to do next episode, I have a few ideas in mind. I could go with my plan from last episode to unlock orange salamanders in the Piscatoris hunter area, to unlock some decent hunter methods, as well as get myself level 69 hunter and a spottier cape. Even though I'd be going through the fishing guild, UIM Tao pointed out to me in the comments of last episode that minnows are locked behind the full angler's outfit, as well as the fishing contest quest, so I wouldn't have to grind to 82 fishing. Another idea I have in mind is going to pest control to get full void and potentially level 43 prayer, since I finally have 75 fletching, so the rune arrow tips sold in the archery shop at pest control won't limit me. I could also choose to work more directly towards my goal of getting to the Motherlode mine. Since I would be unlocking Port Khazard before Motherlode mine, I would need to get 91 cooking, 81 fishing, and 50 smithing for the mithril rocks in this chunk. I could grind any of these skills next episode, or try to figure out some chunks to unlock to make training these skills more efficient. Let me know what you guys think I should do next. I'm always open to ideas, and every episode I learn a few things from the comments, which help my account's progression. As always, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel. Subscribing helps my channel grow and will make my brain release dopamine. I also have a link to my Patreon in the description if you want to support me even more. I hope you all have a great day.